There was a tweet from Elon not long ago where he said something like, if his project estimates for when things are supposed to get done, if he meets 51% of the time, he's not late, that is success to him. Now, if you're not used to working on projects, especially big important projects, that may sound like a low bar. However, if you've had any experience working, especially in large organizations, but really working on anything new or big or important, you understand that even hitting that 50% mark with your time estimates, that is very difficult to do, actually. And what I want to do is try to break down why that is. So, on the first level here, there's two things happening. The first is assuming you know what you're doing, more or less. No, quick caveat. This doesn't apply to like things that you do every day, things that you know absolutely for certain how they go. Like taking out the trash every Thursday. You know it only takes you 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever. These rules don't apply to that. What I'm about to talk about is talking about projects when you're building something that hasn't existed yet, which when you are a software company, for instance, that's why you're building the things. You're giving estimates for how long it's going to take to build or do research or whatever. This is what I'm talking about. Now, even if you know everything that you more or less need to get done, every step is going to take typically at least 10 or 20% more time than you expect, at least. And when you add all those things together, it ends up being about twice as long as you first anticipated. So, first rule of thumb, if you know everything more or less that needs to be done, double your time estimate. If you think it's supposed to take 2 weeks, it's going to be a full month, most likely. Now, that's part A. Part B is, guess what? You usually don't know everything that's required. You usually don't know where all the tough, sticky parts are. There's usually surprises that come along, and those really muck things up. So that initial estimate that you already had and doubled, let's go with the same example of 2 weeks, you double it to 1 month. Okay, double that. Now it's 2 months instead of 2 weeks. Now, if that's your methodology for giving estimates, there's a pretty good chance that you can meet your time deadlines at least 50% of the time if you quadruple your initial estimate. It might seem like, oh, that's simple then. You just add a bunch more time. Why doesn't everyone just always do that? There's a few reasons, and I'm going to try to demonstrate one of them by doing a little role play. We'll see how well this plays out when I'm editing later. Developing. Oh, hey, developer Nick. PM Nick here. Guess I'm not developing any. Yeah, what's up? We have this roadmap, and a lot of things depend on certain things being done at certain times. You know how things go. On Project X, do you have any idea how long that would take to build? Okay. I guess I could schedule doing a spike so that I could see what kind of things might creep up and really what all of the possible thorny issues could be. And then I might be able to give you kind of a half-educated guess. Right, but I have a meeting in 20 minutes that I really need to give an estimate for the timeline. So can't really be doing that. So how long do you think it would take? Okay, then, maybe 2 months. By the way, completely irrelevant to this conversation, did you hear that there are layoffs coming? Yeah, completely irrelevant though. Anyway, how long did you say? 2 months if that other team were working on it, but my guys, we could do it in 1 month? Okay, I think that's longer than I'd like, but I think we can work with that. All right, thanks. So in that scenario, you don't exactly have, I would say, proper incentives set up for people to be honest, let alone put in the extra buffers and time estimates necessary to, like I said, not just being honest, but just having good targets that are reliable. People are incentivized to shorten the timeline as much as possible, and they're actually penalized by adding those extra buffers. And what tends to happen then is project after project after project goes longer, sometimes way longer than they were supposed to. Not only that, it goes way longer, but also the features are half-baked and it's just not a high quality result at the end. There's a lot of other moving parts that go into this, but one of them is a poor incentive structure for giving reasonable estimates. There's another layer to this. So what I did was a hypothetical conversation between two different people. First of all, these incentive structures, they're not really, people aren't just coming up with them and saying, hey, I want to penalize people for putting in buffers. I want to incentivize people to essentially lie to me. They're not making that decision. That PM has a bunch of stakeholders that he reports to. And each one of those stakeholders, there's a similar incentive structure for him to promise delivery of feature X, feature Y, this amazing thing, that amazing thing, and on as short of a timeline as possible. Those stakeholders probably report to the chief product officer or something. And the chief product officer is also leaning on them. Hey, I need these kinds of results and these things. And guess who the CPO reports to? The CEO, who is leaning on the CPO to get amazing things done in amazing timelines and everything. And they really want to be able to plan the next 3 quarters ahead or something. And the CEO, they're getting pressure from the board of directors or whatever kinds of investors occur, And it's a similar incentive structure as well. And at each layer, the timelines and the pressures to perform and the needs and wants and desires, they all get magnified and perverted, really. And so by the time it gets to that discussion between the PM and the dev, like it's a pre-scripted dance, and it's really kind of like, in this case, it's the developer, but it can happen to designers, it can happen to salespeople, anyone. It's a little bit of a conversational hell because you know the outcome, you know what you have to say, you know you shouldn't, but you know that's the only way that you can get back to work. Now, all of those things that I said, the different relationships, the different incentives and penalties and everything, that doesn't just apply to large companies or even small companies or groups of people. It applies to you as an individual as well. You are constantly having conversations with yourself. Can I get this done in time? Does that fit with my timeline, the roadmap that I have planned for myself? Can I do this in that time window? And if you're not careful, you will set up exactly the same perverse incentive structures and penalties when dealing with yourself. And you will constantly disappoint yourself. You will constantly blame yourself. You will constantly underperform and take longer than you thought you should. This ties into the broader productivity conversation so much because one of the things that I think is going wrong with people when they're trying to be productive, one of many, is this half-hearted, dishonest communication with themselves. And they try to rely on some system, some product, some piece of software to solve that when, unfortunately, that can't help with how you communicate with yourself over time. What to do about that? As with many problems, the only surefire way to deal with the problem is to ensure as much as possible that the problem doesn't exist in the first place. I'm going to talk to you as if you're just working with yourself, but keep in mind, everything I say applies to an organization just as it does to you yourself if you're just working as a one-man business, Okay, so first, incentivize honesty for yourself. Incentivize the ability to let yourself down when you have these conversations with yourself of, can I do this in that time window? Allow yourself to say, honestly, probably not. You have all sorts of pressures just really pushing down on you, and you need to perform, and you need to be able to do better and grow and do faster and outcompete other people, but even outcompete your past self because you need to keep developing. That is all true. And you need to try to do in 1 week what used to take you a month last year. And you should always be pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. All of that is true. However, that's more like motivation. That's aspirational. That is, I would like to, that kind of thing. That is different from, I have a plan, I have a schedule. This thing is going to be done by that time, and that thing is going to be done by that time. These are two completely different things. And if you are always failing on your schedules, failing on what you think you should be delivering as far as quality and quantity, that is demoralizing. Ignore everything else for the moment, like the fact that it takes longer and it's not as high quality and everything. That kills your morale. And I want to remind you, I'm talking to you as if you were just a one-man team, but this applies to organizations just as much, maybe even more. So yeah, the first recommendation I have is allow yourself to disappoint yourself when you are having those conversations. It's far better to be disappointed in the moment and then be able to adjust your plans and your strategies going forward so that you can take into account these disappointments that you're being honest with yourself and you uncovered. It's better to do that than to constantly be dealing with fires that could have been prevented if you would have just had that honest conversation early on. Okay. If you can manage that will take you a long, long way. All right. The other thing is just give bigger estimates than you think are accurate, especially if you're not able to quite incentivize honesty with yourself, then, okay, have a rule. If I think something is going to take 1 hour, I'm marking it down as 2 hours. If I think something is going to take 1 week, I'm planning as if it will take 3 weeks. And then, okay, let's say you're knocking it out of the park. You meet all those quotas. Well, okay, apparently either that's working or you were already being kind of honest. And these things can kind of work together because if you force yourself to exaggerate the time windows, then that's kind of getting you to the same end result as if you're being honest with yourself. And if you force yourself to do that, if you force yourself to disappoint yourself through methodology, then it's a comparatively easy step to then disappoint yourself through honesty, because you're already disappointing yourself in those conversations. So why not just be honest to begin with, you know? Yeah, I think that's all I got on this one. Like, comment, subscribe, you know? Yeah. I hope the little skit that I did wasn't too cringe. There'll be things to click here, you know, so click them. Yeah. And have a good day.